Do you know how easy it was to lie to people before the internet?
That's what I keep thinking of, dude. Like they had the privilege of just making stuff up.
Who would be fact checking you? Who would be like,
how could they?
Who could be like, let me pull up your Facebook profile, Antoine de la Mothe. Here on Twitter, on ye old Twitter, on 1666, you said that you like
BTS over Blackpink. Like that's
yeah, we have the receipts. You could just lie. That's another reason I think if I was a white man in the past, I would do so well, because I could just lie about things.
So this is about the founder of Detroit, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what do you think was the deal with those guys? Huh? Like
Hey, welcome to Pint-Size Prohibition, the show where we talk about the curious and secret history of Detroit.
Hello everybody, this is Kayla coming at you from the editing process. I just wanted to make a clarification about the topic of this video. We are celebrating what is historically known as Detroit's birthday, which commemorates the landing of French forces on the banks of the Detroit River in July 24th, 1701. As mentioned later in the video, it is important to note that the Anishinaabe people settled in this area nearly 2,000 years before the French did. And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Listen, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac is that guy. He is the quintessential man who failed up.
In the right place at the right time.
Well, today's a special day.
What day is it, Kayla?
It's Detroit's birthday!
Woo! Happy birthday!
Woo! Detroit is celebrating its 319th birthday today.
You don't look a day over 300. You know?
No, she looks pretty good for her age, I must say. So, Detroit was founded in 1701 by French explorers led by Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac.
De la Mothe.
De la Mothe Cadillac. Like, maybe the fleur de lis. Oh, yes, we will go get the fur de castor. Ho, 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 baguette.
All right. Let's talk about Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac. So, Kayla, who is Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac? De la Mothe Cadillac.
He was born in Gascony in the 1650s. The quickest way to talk about him is he is a entrepreneurial spirit who founded a city that we now call Detroit. The slow version is he might have been the worst person to ever found a city. And that's according to his contemporaries. That's not like us looking back in history and being like, wow, this guy was terrible. People literally said he had a, quote, evil mind.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So here's what happens. This is how he gets to New France in the first place. In the 1880s, he's in his mid to late 20s. And he comes here pretending to be a soldier and gets in with this privateer named Francois Guyon. And he moves to Acadia, and then he's like making himself look like he's this grand soldier, and he's mixing in with this privateer's men. And this privateer happened to have this very beautiful niece named Marie Teresa Guyon. And they end up getting married and moving up north to what we would now call Maine, but was then called Acadia. So he's one of the first Cajun people, because the Cajun peoples actually came from Maine and went down to Louisiana. This is the theme, but this is foreshadowing. And people hated him. People, again, like I said, thought he had an evil mind, and there were rumors that he got like kicked out of France by the king.
Wow. Okay, wait, hang on.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like I had my own story mixed up in my head about it then, because I was under the assumption that Cadillac had been in France and had already like worked his way into doing whatever it was he was doing to be sent over here by Louis XIV.
So yeah, but he did. So
all of this happened in the French like colonies, really?
Yeah,
right?
in the French colonies, and then he goes back and then like gets in with some like guys in court. So right around the time that he moves back to France, the Acadians get kicked out of Maine, or what we now call Maine, by William Phipps. who like takes over Port Royal, which is this part of Maine that was once belonged to the French. And because of this whole thing that goes down, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac gets the attention of the new minister of the colonies, Louis de Pontchartrain, and he introduces him to the governor of the colonies, and that's Louis de Frontenac. Okay, again, I'm probably butchering all of this French, and if I'm not, please leave a comment down below.
Telling you what a good job you did.
Yes. So, Frontenac is like a favorite of the king, and he and Cadillac become really close. So then Cadillac gets sent back to the New World because he wants to take over New York, take it from the English, and establish more French power. So they go into the interior and they go to Michilimackinac, and this is in 1694, where Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac does his first crime. He makes a ton of money illegally selling alcohol, specifically brandy, to the Native Americans. So this goes back to that the point you had made in our second episode of Pint-Sized Prohibition, where Prohibition starts with the Jesuits saying you can't sell to the Native Americans. Yeah. So Cadillac is doing that, and Frontenac is like gets in huge trouble because of it. Cadillac made bank on it, but it created a problem for Frontenac, and he was like, yeah, this gotta stop. You gotta stop doing this, dog. So he goes back to France, and then he makes an audience with the king in 1699, and he's like, hey, here's the thing. I've been all around New France. We want to protect ourselves from the British. There's a narrow point in the Great Lakes. Let's go there. Let's do it. And the king's like, yeah, you're right. Let's do it. So he was commanded to achieve 6 objectives for the French. Number 1, make sure the beaver trade didn't fall into the hands of the Iroquois, because the Iroquois were aligned with the British. That's bad. Number 2, deliver high-quality pelts back to France, because France had too many low-quality pelts coming from the New World. We need to get good stuff. Number 3, get the voyageurs and the Cour de Bois to work for him, and specifically the government of France. The Cour de Bois, they kind of got to roam around. Like, they usually worked for other merchants, and by extension, the people of France, but like, they kind of got to live their own lives, do their own thing, but ultimately, it was better to be aligned with France. Number 4, get guaranteed benefits for merchants who were traveling through New France. Number 5, reunite the Allied nations at Détroit. And last, but certainly not least, assimilate those people into the French nation.
What a to-do list.
What a to-do list.
So they're trying to essentially assimilate everyone who has already showed up in that area, just to get everyone on board and invite them to the France party.
Well, before Detroit was a city, the Native Americans that lived in this area are Algonquin-speaking people. The Anishinaabe people, they would gather here. They would do a lot of trading because this is the narrowest point in the Great Lakes region. The Algonquin word for what we now know as Detroit means like the place where the river bends. So it was like this very small little area. And because this was the narrowest place in the Great Lakes, it's strategic to put a fort there because the British are encroaching from the east. And the French are here in the north and in the east and a little bit into the west. They're all in here. And the British are over here like, hey, we want to control the fur trade here. And the French are like, no. So the French are like, let's set up a strategic fort somewhere in the Great Lakes where it's the narrowest. So there were 2 locations that you could have done this in. The first one that was explored was the Straits of Mackinac. But the problem with the Straits of Mackinac, it's not narrow enough. You need to be able to, like, at all points, like, shoot British ships out of here. However, at the time, it is important to remember this is at the time, what we now know as the Detroit River was only 1/4 of a mile wide. So like when it froze over, you could like walk across. And it's only been widened because of dredging, because we have our massive like freighters that come through the Great Lakes. So if you built a fort like right there and you shot a cannon, you could hit across all the way to what we now know as Windsor. So Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac decided, hey, we should build a fort here. And they were like, yeah, that sounds great. So he built Fort Pontchartrain on the Straits, and the word for straits in French is Détroit. And then the English moved in and they were like, yeah, this is Detroit. And that's how we started it. And if you were trying to envision where this was, so part of the fort was where TFC is, where Fort Pontchartrain Hotel is, the one that's right there on Jefferson, like just down the street from Cobo. TFC, TCF, is it TCF?
TCF. I think you said TCF before.
Was where TFC is.
Where TFC is.
All of that was like a nice little fort that they built there, and they built the powder magazine outside of it. And then on July 25th, they founded St. Anne's Church, which is the second oldest Catholic congregation in the United States, and you can go visit their church and they can tell you all about what that's like. So that is how Detroit got founded, and he founds the city of Detroit, and he actually stays here for quite a few years. 9 years, which I know that doesn't sound like a very long time, but considering...
That's a long time for them.
Right, yeah. Like
their lives, like he could have been 14 for all we know. Like
So he moves. So he's here for a long time in terms of governorships. A lot of times governors would be moved in places. And then in 1710, some bad things happen.
Uh-oh.
Cadillac does his second big no-no.
Crime number 2.
He bribed English people with furs and alcohol.
To do what?
To get back at France.
For what?
Basically, he had not fulfilled all of his promises. He had not established great relationships. He hadn't assimilated these two people groups together. And so France was pissed off at him. And he's like, well, you know what? Screw you. I'm gonna make money. Screw France, acquire furs. That was Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac.
Okay, listen, this guy sounds incompetent. And I don't even know if it's incompetence or if it's like literally just self-serving.
I feel like him being self-serving has led to his incompetence with other things. I feel like had he been the type of person who was able to handle some stuff, we would not be having this conversation right now, Dean. Like, we would have been like, yeah, the founder of Detroit was a normal, nice guy. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. And even his contemporaries thought so. So this is even, like, to the standards of the day, people are like, this guy is messed up. Let me tell you how bad it was. Spoiler alerts, he's going to be replaced as the head of Detroit and going to be punished. And when he was replaced, the rumor spread that he saw a fortune teller, and the fortune teller told him about a red dwarf, the Nain Rouge. And she said, if you respect him, you'll have all of your fortune, you'll always get to stay in Detroit, and you'll live happily ever after here. But if you mess up, it's gonna be really bad for you. And the story goes, the legend goes, that he saw the Nain Rouge in the middle of the road. And rather than respecting him, he takes his cane and beats him and is like, you little red imp, get out of my way. And then the Nain Rouge is like, word? Bet. And he goes and he curses him and he's like, you're never gonna have anything. I put a curse on you. He was like, everything you go and touch is going to rot. Like, he was Sealy at the end of the color purple. Dean.
So the guy has one job. He's got, at this point, aside from forget the 6 things. Forget the 6 items on his to-do list. He has one job. Be nice to the Nain Rouge. And he just can't.
And he couldn't do it.
You know?
He couldn't do it. How could you not, listen, if a mystical woman's like, be nice to the tiny red imp, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that seems reasonable to me. I don't know. I'm Kayla. So Pontchartrain, who was the guy he had met way back in the day, like 30 years before this moment, or 20 years before this moment, really was like this with at this point, he decided to no longer leave Cadillac in charge of Fort Pontchartrain de Détroit and made him the governor of Louisiana, which sounds like an upgrade. Like, oh, hey, I went from being like the leader of this outpost to the governor of this other territory. Nobody wants to live in Louisiana. It's 1710. There's going to be yellow fever and malaria.
I mean, at
there
that
are
point,
swamps.
Louisiana's mostly swamp, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, I believe New Orleans has just been built at this point. There's not a lot there. It's not like, oh, cool, I get to be governor of Louisiana, and like I get to be on the French Quarter, and people were throwing beads at me, and I'd be like, oui, oui, I'm Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, woo! So he goes down to Louisiana in 1713. However, he gets down there and immediately causes problems. He is accused of inciting the inhabitants of Louisiana to leave. And
so wait, hang on. He got there and he did he got there and the people hated him so much.
No. He like incited basically like an insurrection.
Oh.
Yeah.
What's his end goal, man? Okay, anyway, sorry, keep going.
And while he's doing this, he decides to found a copper mine in Illinois.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he's like, this seems like a good thing. Basically, this just pisses off the King of France a lot. So he is not allowed to have this company in the first place because he's on punishment. And then, in addition to being on punishment, he has done all of these things. He's traded with the English back in Detroit and like basically not done any of the things he was supposed to do. So he gets sent back to France, where he gets thrown into the Bastille.
I mean, like, he's finally grounded. This whole thing has just seemed like he's the rebellious teen. You know, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my real dad. I'm gonna do what I want.
Here's the thing, though. You would think that the French nation would not like let him keep doing things like running governments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing. In 1722, 4 years after he gets released from prison, he is named the governor and mayor of a French province.
There really are no consequences, huh?
You know, again, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac failed up a little bit. Oh, that's the other thing. The French government gave him, like, a special honor, the Order of St. Louis, as a reward the year he was released from prison in the Bastille. How, Sway? How?
I just don't... Was there no one else? You know, like, was he the only guy, you think? I feel like it's such a quick response to look at founders of any sort of municipality, anything, with some sort of reverence. When in all reality, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac was a middle manager who had 6 things he had to do. And he did one of them, which was have a fort.
He dies in 1730, and here we are. So I didn't mean for this to be a complete deconstruction of the way we view the founder of the city of Detroit, because, you know, like...
It is Detroit's birthday.
Yeah, and I want us to celebrate. So let's talk about an early French person who was actually baller and is totally worth our time talking about, who's like a good person from early Detroit history, is Father Gabriel Rashard. He was the priest at St. Anne's in the early 1800s. He founded the University of Michigan and helped rebuild Detroit after the Great Fire, and he's really one of the greatest early Detroiters we've got. I think he is a much better example of what a good early Detroiter is. In addition to co-founding the University of Michigan in 1817, he also helped establish some of the first schools that were in the city of Detroit that were for a broader public, and his schools were racially integrated with Native American and white children.
Oh, wow.
Yeah! So in our drink corner today, we're going to do 2 recipes. I am going to make the stone fence, and you are going to make tourtiere, which is a French-Canadian meat pie. For today's drink, we're going to be drinking the stone fence, which is a 18th century drink that involves rum and cider.
Bonsoir, je suis Dean, et c'est chaud ici, c'est cuisinière. Yeah, that's French. Hi, we're back in the kitchen today to make a French tourtiere, which is a French-Canadian meat pie.
One thing that I've noticed a lot in doing research for episodes of Pint-Size Prohibition is that the older you go, the more basic these drinks are gonna get because you don't have as much access to things. So this is literally just rum and cider. If you want to do kind of a more modern twist, you can add some lemon peel or something like that, but I didn't want to do another lemony drink this time.
I'm very excited to make this. I'm excited to see how it turns out. It's a historic recipe that comes to us from the French voyageurs. You're gonna need 2 pounds of meat, you're gonna need 1 pound of beef and 1 pound of ground pork, 4 cloves of garlic that are crushed, 1 large onion finely diced, about a half cup of celery finely diced, 1 large russet potato. Use what you have, whatever you got in your kitchen.
So, because it's the 1700s, we're starting with a dark rum. Rum was really popular back then, but you would know that if you've seen Pirates of the Caribbean.
One of the more important things in this recipe is the pie crust, of course. The recipe that I'll be using, I can link in the description down below, but it called to make your own pie crust, but I didn't want to. So, that's all it is. Let's get to it.
I'm gonna put about 1.5 shots or 2 ounces of rum in there. Then, you're just gonna top it off with some cider. So I've got my favorite hard cider. Recipes recommend for a stone fence that you choose a cider that is pretty crisp but has a sweetness in the aftertaste, so it kind of has a nice finish. So just top it off. Happy birthday, Detroit. Cheers to you.
So here it is. Shut up. My only critique is that it's 95 degrees outside. The oven has been on 375 for about an hour, and this is a very winter meal. But I do not regret it. It is fantastic. I highly recommend it. Yeah, it's kind of cool to eat like a French voyageur, you know?
It tastes like if you mixed rum with cider. Like, it's not my favorite thing. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. But I also know that in the 1700s, people didn't like have access to a lot of sweet tasting things. So this would have been a treat for them, and they would have been like, thank God we get to have this stone fence. So Dean, I think I'm gonna light these candles now.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Detroit!
Happy birthday, Detroit! Happy 309th birthday. 319th birthday.
So it was really fun celebrating Detroit's birthday with you.
Thanks for watching Pint-Size Prohibition. Happy birthday, Detroit.
Like and subscribe to us on all social media outlets. Links will be in the description for that. If you have any questions or any suggestions about future episodes of Pint-Size Prohibition, or if you tried the stone fence drink or made tourtiere and you would like to tell us about it, you can do so in the comments below. So, until next time, Dean, I hope you have a great Detroit's birthday.
You too, Kayla. Enjoy that cupcake.
I will, and I will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.